All right, Intro to Sports Science students, welcome back to another interview with yet another ever so intelligent and capable individual that I've been lucky enough to meet throughout my times. And specifically, today we're going to have another person talking from the area of sports management. And without further ado, I'm going to let Dr. Right, Becky Achen talk a little bit about how she essentially got to where she is with being a professor at Illinois State University in sports management.
Great. Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Dr. Lane. It never gets old, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
That. Thank you for inviting me to talk with your class and for letting me tell a little bit about my experiences. I actually started as an undergrad in Minnesota, Southwest Minnesota State, with a sport management degree with the intention of eventually being a general manager for a minor league baseball team. And so while I was an undergraduate, I did an internship with the Sioux Falls Canaries. And after I finished the internship, they actually hired me halfway through my senior year to work as essentially a customer relationship management individual. And I spent my time calling season ticket holders and getting to know them and making sure they were happy. And then I went there during the season once it started, and again, my job was literally to be friends with them and make sure everything was going well during the game. So I spent the summer doing that, and I liked it, but baseball is a hard sport to work in, and really sport in general is difficult to work in that it's very long hours for not a lot of pay, and my whole summer was taken up, and so I just decided I was ready to try something else. And so I went back to college admissions for a couple of years and got my master's degree from Winona State in sport management again, because I just love sports so much. I just kept getting degrees in it. And then after I finished that degree, decided that it was time to maybe use it for something. And so I applied for a job with the National Center for Drug-Free Sport in Kansas City, Missouri. And they were hiring somebody to work in their sales and marketing and education department. So it was kind of a two-sided job. I did sales and marketing for a drug and alcohol education program for student athletes. And that was brand new when I started. So I got to create the marketing plan and the sales strategy and got a lot of really great experience on that side, which sales and marketing is really where my expertise lies. And then I also worked on educating student athletes on which dietary supplements contain banned substances and which they could take, and did some nutrition education as well. So it's kind of a weird job. I got a little bit of both. So I know entirely too much about the dietary supplement industry and drug testing, but I did get a lot of great experience there. And after doing that for a couple of years, I was a personal trainer at the time and teaching group fitness classes, and had kind of learned that I like to teach people and that I liked that experience of helping people reach their goals. And so that kind of led me to go back and get my PhD at the University of Kansas, where I spent 4 years as a graduate teaching assistant, teaching our introduction to sport management classes and a whole lot of group fitness type classes as well, as we all got to do, which I'm sure you as students have maybe heard stories of already. So that's kind of how I got my degree. And then ISU was the first person who wanted to hire me. And, after you go to school for 10 years, you say yes when people want to hire you. And so that's how I ended up teaching at ISU, which is where I have been teaching for the last 2 years and also doing research. And most of my research is on using social media as a marketing tool in professional sport and a little bit in the fitness industry as well.
Awesome. So we'll start off with talking a little bit about your research, because obviously it always interested me. What, kind of give them the basics of what you're really looking at as far as social media engagement and then sports and the fitness industry. And so far, what have you found out that for people that are interested in getting to sports management would be some important aspects to keep in mind when it comes to social media?
Sure. I love to talk about my research. Nobody ever wants to talk about my research. I got into researching social media because I'm really interested in this idea of relationship marketing and using your marketing to build relationships with your customers, which provides long-term value. And because sport is an industry where we really are very connected with our customers, right? People are very avid fans of their team. They want to connect. And so I see, and I believe social media could be a potential avenue for increasing that connection without time or geographical limitations. So I've done some studies trying to measure whether social media actually improves customer relationships and in turn also improves their intentions to purchase or their intentions to refer their friends to purchase tickets and merchandise. And some of those initial studies have been really pretty interesting in that they've shown that increased levels of engagement, so people that are commenting more, sharing more, liking your content more, are increasing their strength of their relationship with your organization, and in turn are more likely to purchase tickets or merchandise and refer others to do the same. And that's important in that social media is different than all other types of media. And when it originally started, organizations were using it the same way they use anything else. You know, they try to push people to buy stuff and push them to their website with links of tickets and merchandise opportunities. And you know, people were already getting that from their email and their mail and people calling them on the phone, and they didn't see that social media was a different animal or a different type of channel, that people really went on social media, right, to connect with people. And so it seems like there is an opportunity for teams to use it in that way, which is where the real value is seeming to lie based on conversations and interviews that I've done with individuals who are sport fans and use social media, as well as those other studies, broad-based survey studies, trying to connect whether it's improving relationships. The other thing I've done way too much of is content analysis. So I could just finish the study. I'm still working on the data because there's a lot of it, where I did a off-season content analysis of all major league sport teams in the U.S. for the MLS, MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, and WNBA, which is a lot of data if you've ever wanted to know. On both Facebook and Twitter. And so what I've learned there is that there is wildly differing strategies, not just across leagues, but between teams in leagues. And it is almost unbelievable how different some of these strategies might be in terms of frequency of posting, how much interaction individuals' posts are getting, what types of posts teams are posting. You know, we see a little bit of stuff trying to get fans to interact, like polls and trivia questions. We see some stuff trying to get people to connect with sponsors. We see some sales. But for the most part, we see a lot of content designed at promoting players outside of the game. And from a relationship building standpoint, that is interesting because that gives fans more than what they were getting pre-social media age, right? They weren't publishing as many special interest stories on their players on their website as they are now with these social media channels. And people are seeming to want to engage with that significantly more than other types of content. And Twitter and Facebook have been used in a little bit different ways, which I think was interesting from a social media manager's standpoint. But all that to say, from a standpoint of, you know, individuals going out into the field and kind of feeling it out, it does seem that social media is a beneficial source, but that you have to use it differently than you've used it in the past. You know, don't just use it to put out game statistics and try to sell tickets. Use it to give fans behind-the-scenes looks at what's happening at practice, or give them a story about a player's off-season trip to Europe. You know, give them more than what they can get from your other channels if you really want to connect with them. And you know, the other thing I've really learned is that the number of followers that you have doesn't actually mean a whole lot. Typically what we're seeing is that your number of followers doesn't increase the number of interaction you have on your page or your attendance, anything like that. You typically can have a small group of engaged people as being a lot more beneficial than a large group of people who just liked you because you were annoying them to like you, or you were annoying them to like their page, or you had a contest where if they liked your page, they won something. We're seeing that those likes aren't that important in the long term. So I think that's interesting. Maybe you should focus more that social media strategy not on garnering page likes, but on trying to really connect with people and improve their experience.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure they enjoyed unlocking all that because you beat me to the follow-up of, you know, what they can do to try to apply it these days. Awesome. Now, whenever you were working for the baseball team, and then obviously when you're working for the anti-doping agency, which I'm not sure how big of a fan I am of that. I mean, where's the fun in sports without having people write it up? But what what would you say were your big takeaways from those jobs? Like, what did you learn aside from the fact of you wanted to go back to school?
From working in baseball, I think one of the most important things I learned from that is really where I realized, and I think I kind of always knew it, but where I realized that your customer is the most important thing. Without customers, you don't exist. And I don't care how good your team is. If you continually treat people like crap, they're eventually going to stop coming to your game, buying into your product, and saying good things about you. And while some teams, like you take the New England Patriots, right, they could probably do a lot of pretty terrible things and still survive, which, they have done a lot of pretty questionable things, and they still survive. But most sport organizations aren't as insulated as that. And, a lot of students that I've worked with in the past, we all are very siloed into thinking they're going to work in Division I sports or professional sports, when the bulk of jobs are really in minor league sports and semi-professional sports and Division III. And those are the levels where, people aren't going to stick by you just because you're winning if you don't treat them well. And I think I really learned that from the job that I had at the minor league baseball team. And then from my work with drug-free sports, that was one of the few times that I have been, other than being a university professor, the few times that I have been thrown in and told to just figure it out. And I'd never created a marketing plan before, not even in any of my degrees had I done that. Mm-hmm. And they expected me to come up with one that worked. And I learned from that, really, you have to be willing to kind of figure things out on your own and research on the computer and see what you can learn and create something completely from scratch. And you have to be willing and able to do that when you get into the working world. And I wish I'd had more experience with that as an undergraduate, which is, of course, what I'm always telling my students. I love to tell that story because I think it hopefully encourages students, and I hope it will encourage all of you to also be willing to put yourself out there and really try to come up with something on your own when it comes to class assignments.
Awesome. And okay, now you got my interest piqued because we're talking about the drug-free sport, and you talked a little bit about the wonders of the supplement industry. We have a chapter where we actually talk about sports nutrition. What less than savory things were you exposed to, or did you get the chance to learn about while you were working there?
I probably have a very, from the time we spent in Kansas together, I have a very probably different opinion on dietary supplements than you might, but one of the most interesting things, I don't have a nutrition degree, but yet I was expected to understand the ingredients in the label and what they were and their chemical structure. I'm also not a chemistry major. So I learned very quickly, that I had to be focused on really the industry itself. And we had to do a lot of research when I got there on the regulation of the supplement industry. And that to me has been the most surprising or interesting thing, is that any dietary supplement product, any product labeled as a supplement, isn't required to be proven safe or effective prior to being marketed. And that's why we often see the recalls, and we see things like DMAA being taken off the market as being unsafe because it wasn't tested prior to being put on the market, or even proven that it wasn't a synthetic substance, which turns out that it was. So, for me, that was some of the shocking stuff that I couldn't believe how easy it was. I always tell, when I give a lecture here on this every semester in a sports nutrition class, and we could all go into my garage right now and make ourselves a dietary supplement and sell it on the internet for a lot of money and write all kinds of cool claims. And until somebody complained or until we got found out, we could do that. And that to me is just a crazy concept. And then I also think supplement companies are the best marketers in the whole world. Honestly, I think if you want to learn how to present something in a way that makes people convinced, I think that industry does a very good job of doing that. So.
No, I wasn't trying to, because we know the term that I try to teach them about is the fairy dusting, where if they don't actually say how many milligrams of how much is in there, well, A, the labels don't always match up, but B, sometimes, yeah, it's mostly just sugar, or it's mostly just
Right.
A or B, and you're probably the things that you think are having a beneficial effect, there's really not that much. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes into it that, it really is the Wild West. And I mean, it's not unheard. Ultimate Orange. Not sure if you're familiar with that supplement, but it was popular in the late 90s, early thousands, and I never took it, but supposedly the first run of it was actually had Anavar, which is an oral anabolic compound, added into it. So people really got a lot out of taking that pre-workout. And
no wonder it worked, right?
Bingo. And then, but the second run, they didn't put that in there. So whenever the FDA went to actually test the product, it came up as, okay, it's got caffeine and, some vitamins and otherwise, so it's really not that nefarious. So it's, it is very much so the Wild West out there when it comes to the supplement industry. So.
And for the informed consumer who knows what they're doing, you can wade through it. But the majority of consumers that they're targeting are not the informed consumer. So that's where it gets, it's probably okay for 10% of the people, they can figure it out, but the other 90% are the ones getting duped or taking dangerous things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of going to and obviously kind of cantering more towards the sports management students, but what's your big pieces of advice for those students as they're going through their undergraduate degrees so they're going to be successful after they graduate?
Yeah, a couple of things that you probably heard 1,000 times, but I feel like it can't hurt to say again. Sport management is a very diverse field, and it is really difficult to know what you want to do. So try and experience and volunteer and do internships in as many things as you can while you're a student. So you will learn, I hate sales. I don't want to be an event manager. I can't tell you how many students tell me they want to do something. They do their internship their senior year of college and find out they hate it and never want to do that. Mm-hmm. And the more you can experience younger, the more you'll be able to wade through what you really don't like to try to find your way to what it is that you do want to do. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, that also helps with getting experience, which in most industries is how you're going to get a job. And industries want to see that you took the time to volunteer for events and get working in sport and get experience. So definitely don't waste your college years, partying it up and forgetting that your ultimate end goal is to get out of there with some education that will help you be a good professional and be a working member of society. Mm. And the other one, of course, is easy, right? Everybody says networking. But network in a way, don't try to make 1,000 okay relationships. Try to make 2 or 3 really strong relationships. And it's maybe as simple as going to somebody in athletics there, right? Call them up. Don't call them up and say, hey, someday can you get me a job? Say, hey, I really want to learn about what it is that you do. Can I come in and just talk to you for 30 minutes and just learn about you? Because people love to talk about themselves. Even people who say they don't love to talk about themselves. So get a chance to get in there, learn from them, make that contact in a very authentic way. And then if 5 years down the road they can be of help to you, as long as you've kept in contact and really given yourself an opportunity to get to know them and them to get to know you, you have a very natural connection as opposed to an awkward, like, hey, I applied for this job and wondered if you could help me, and you haven't ever seen my name before, but I know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, because that always works really well. The whole dropping, sending a thank you note and otherwise can be incredibly effective for helping you find the next gig. So, just kind of asking you, what's, obviously, you're living the dream, being a soft academician such as myself, but what's your overall goal now with what you're trying to do with sports management, both, in the research, teaching, or career-wise?
That's a great question. I'm always telling my students that I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I really love the mix that we have here with teaching and research, and I would really like to continue where I'm at with teaching. But what I would really like to do is try to find a way to better help our students and the students that come across my desk to try to find, a career that works for them. And, sport management is tough. There are a lot of people graduating with sport management degrees, and how I want to do some of my own research to figure out how students can set themselves apart. I'm also hoping to shift some of my general research into more of that career self-efficacy, career development for sport management students, for stuff that other professors can use at other universities to help their students be successful in the field. Sports is not going away. It's every year something seems to be growing or changing. The MLS has grown exponentially in the U.S. and will continue to do so. I'm certain of that. And, sports like lacrosse are gaining traction. And so we're going to see more opportunities for students. So I really like to try to expand my own knowledge of and contacts in the field to better help my students become the kind of professionals that want to get hired. I think I probably will never move into administration. I think I love teaching too much to do that. So, who knows if I can stay at Illinois State for my entire career, but this level of university with a lot of student interaction and some research has really been working well for me, and I really enjoy that.
Awesome. So speaking of how everyone loves to talk about themselves, what's a question that you wish people asked you more often?
Ooh, man, that's hard.
I know.
A question that I wish people asked me more often.
Or what's something that you would, just any other thing that I haven't brought up that you'd like to just say for these students?
That's great because this happens to me often. My degrees are all in sport management, and I love sports, but I am a passionate health and fitness and wellness person. And prior to deciding to go back to get my degree, I was deciding between that and moving into working in corporate wellness. And so people never ask me about my interest there because, I'm just such a sport person. But the other thing I'd love for your students to know about me is that I'm very passionate about that area. And I think that people's passion for lifetime sports and fitness and wellness also plays into their interest in sport in some ways. And in general, it's good for everybody, right? If we have healthy people, we have healthy organizations. It sounds so corny, but it's very true. And so my passion for wellness and fitness tells me to remind your students that that's something that is important for their lives, not only as students, but going ahead in life as a stress reducer and being the best that you can be in tough industries that expect a lot out of you. So don't lose sight of, trying to keep you as healthy and well as you can be, because I'm real passionate about that stuff.
Awesome. And final question, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but what was it like being Dr. Lumpkins' graduate student?
Oh, it was fantastic. She is what I would call a hard woman who has experienced a lot more in her life than I probably ever will. She was one of the first coaches after Title IX, right? So, she knew what it was like to play in that era and to try to fight for respect in that era. And I think that has really shaped who she is. She's very aggressive and demanding, and that worked well for me because I demand a lot of myself, and we get along really well. But I always appreciated her. It took me, the first time I met her, I was scared out of my mind. But I always appreciated her, and I always know that if I go to her, she will give me an honest answer and do whatever it is to, help me improve myself. And if I can tell students anything else in their whole life, for me, she has been one of the most important mentors that I know will fight for me if I ever need somebody to fight for me. And if you can find somebody that you can connect with in that way in your professional life, I think that is only going to help you going ahead in the future. Even if they are sometimes aggressive or not everybody's happy-go-lucky, and that's okay.
Oh no, she is great. She has to be one of the most intense people I've ever met.
Agreed.
Oh yeah, she was in there every single morning at 6 a.m. just grinding on the treadmill while reading either a massive book or a bunch of different publications, and then just would put in a full day. Her work ethic is one of the more impressive things that I've seen in higher ed. So,
yeah, I've rarely seen any. She's a tenured full professor. She's a department chair, and we're working on 3 research projects right now. Her doesn't that just actually blow your mind?
Oh my gosh.
But I never met anybody that focused and dedicated to their work, and maybe sometimes a little bit too much. But it is truly impressive to find a faculty member at her status that puts in the time she does, not only into research but into the students as well. I loved being her. I loved being her student. Honestly, I loved it.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that I really enjoyed working with Dr. Frye, and Mary Frye is just an absolute sweetheart. But you just kind of got the look of, man, whoever has to work for Lumpkin, man, they got to work. There's no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's no question there.
Flag.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, for your time. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's always nice. Like I said, people like talking about themselves, so I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks again.